Well, let's go ahead and get started. First thing is an updated budget.
So the last time we were with you, we gave you some scenarios. We plan to give you the same scenarios more, but of course, between that time and this time, we tell you we're working on things. Some things are kind of coming up, some things are going to come in down. And then, of course, with the facility things, you saw what is coming in and coming up. And so what I will say to you is the first slide is the same with the updated date and information. The second slide is identical, but at the April 23rd, the April 13th meeting, we need to review the proposed general fund budget. At that point in time, Joni and I would like to, as your administrators, make a recommendation to you as to what we believe you should consider in the form of any potential tax increase. And if you don't want to do our recommendation, then you're going to have to give us some direction about what you do want us to do so that by the time we come back in May, we can bring you a balanced budget. And so that is where we're headed into. We would really like some kind of indication today from the board and the finance committee of what direction you want us to head for April 13th. And so the next slide then is just going to, I'm going to talk.
Jackie, can I interrupt one second?
Yes, sir.
Is the April 13th, does that show, that's the work session or is that the?
That's the work session.
That's the work session. I didn't know, like most of the other dates are the voting session.
They
So I don't know
are.
if that's the right date, so.
Well, and here's what I'll probably tell you. We probably wanted it to be the voting session, but remember the April dates are jumped,
Right,
and we
moved
really didn't
backward.
realize it when we made the original slide. So I can ask you now, would you prefer to have this on the 13th or the 20th?
I think we needed at the work session to
Yeah.
discuss it, to vote on it the 20th. That's, I just didn't know.
You don't make a vote on it in April. You take the vote in May,
Well, okay,
but you have to we gave you a preview in March. We're going to give you a review of the proposed general fund budget. So in April, whether it's the 13th or the 20th, whatever you want us to do, but it sounds like the 13th is the work
Okay.
session. That this is when we're going to say to you, here are the numbers. If there is no tax increase, here's the budget gap. Here's what we've been able to balance with what we know for sure up and down. And here's the budget gap that we still have. We believe with an X dollar tax increase, we can bring you a balanced budget in a month. You've got to tell us if you're going to
right. I guess vote wasn't a proper term. I think we're gonna have to
discuss.
make a
We're gonna
decision
have to
whether
get a
we want to
Give
consensus.
us some direction.
You need
Yeah,
to
give
give
you
us
a direct- yeah.
direction.
Yeah, we need some direction.
go with 100%, 50, whatever,
Yeah.
or no tax.
Yeah, or where
increase,
you
yes.
believe that you're comfortable with so that we
Yes.
can get it there. And so maybe the 13th is the appropriate, it sounds like you want it at the work session where there can be lots of discussion on it, but
Yes.
you're not taking any action. And by, of course, on May 11th, the work session before, you would actually see the proposed balanced final budget. And then the May 11th, you would adopt the proposed balanced budget, and then your official adoption is in June. In my time that I've been with you as the superintendent, we have not made any changes in budgets between May and June. And then just to let you know, that's why there's all this preliminary work. The tax office has to be ready to send out tax bills, increase or no increase. And so that June 15th, and actually the proposed balance budget has to be a month.
They advertise it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Has to be advertised 30 days.
Well, actually, is that gonna be a problem? Because it'll be fine. May 11th and June 15th. that's gonna be a problem.
Yes.
So we made sure there was
Yes,
30
we did.
days between that.
Yes.
So it would be nice to get some solid direction from you today and formal solid direction from you on the 13th so that we could give you what you need on May 11th and June, okay? So Joni, I'm going to ask you to go ahead to the next slide about the governor's budget.
So we attended via Zoom the governor's proposal. And we did see an increase of the state subsidy of 1.741727. The basic ed portion of that was the 1.4, and the special ed increase was 268,812. He did recommend and propose we use these as budget numbers. He said, if you're going to put your budget numbers in for 23-24, use these numbers.
So they are all increases.
They
all
are,
these
yeah,
numbers
these are the,
increases.
this is the
Okay.
increase over last year. I believe basic ed was 6.5 and special ed, or yeah, special ed might have been 7%, I believe it was, increase over last year. Now, there is also a chance, but we will not budget this, that they'll even level up even more come January. But we don't put that in, and we don't ever budget that number in because you don't know.
Worst case.
I don't think it'll be, it's never and been in the past any less, but you don't budget the level up number. So,
Well, this was good news. This was really good news and. we
oh,
felt
very good news.
Comfortable.
And there's lots of, legislation out there about unfair equity to all the schools, and you've been reading up on all of that, and, hopefully that will take some kind of formation and action to actually, divide equitably.
I
between
think
all
that
the
reason
schools.
it is looking, it could be 5 years till that's really fully implemented.
Sure, really could be.
But
So,
I think Jody mentioned this, not only did the governor do his budget, but then PASBO presented, it was all afternoon.
yeah, so it was all
We spent
afternoon,
at least
all
3 or
afternoon.
4 hours.
Yes,
Um,
the beef, the
Pretty exciting
basic ed
meeting.
funding
Yeah.
formulas weighted, yeah.
Yes, it was, but we did it together and we stuck in there and basically this is the number that they PASBO even supported. Use these numbers in this formula to know what you can
Right.
comfortably budget for.
And then the next slide are the notable expenses, and through the facility meeting, we've touched on, I believe, every one of these, but so just to reiterate, with the grant expenditures, if we are looking at receiving the Renew America Schools, we do have to commit to $2 million towards that project. And I have included that in the budget numbers. Also, the COPS grant, the match with that $500,000 was $165,000 match. The personnel budgets, now that includes 2 CTC positions, one for the Homeland Security position and one for a CTC educator. And then also in here are 4 paraprofessionals, building assistants per the security proposal of having additional staffing in the buildings. There are 4 support type staff to put in the buildings, monitor the halls.
If I could just speak a little bit.
And
to
we
the
haven't
two-
got that recommendation yet, so yeah.
Well,
We
it's
have.
been a recommendation from the admin team for quite some time, and we were looking for a grant to fund it. And I just said, with where everything's headed, I want to account for it now. If you guys tell us, take it out, we'll
Add
take it out.
more, add more. I want 2 security officers on top of this.
Well,
I'm sorry, I do.
Listen, we're not Santa Claus. You can't have everything you're
No,
asking.
security officers cost a whole lot more than a teacher, and more than the aides, and the discussions that I'm aware of, or that we have the appropriate amount of security officers and police officers. It's the other things that we don't have that we need. Because what the officers can do is limited compared to what these folks can do. And so this is prevention and response together. And the gentleman that I've also talked to said that when they implemented a program similar to this in Philadelphia schools, they saw an 89% reduction in discipline up front. And so that's administratively, that's where our recommendation is. There may be some other things come forward, but and
Can they carry guns and tasers?
no, they have other tools.
They don't need to carry guns and tasers if they're implemented the way and used the way that the voting administrators want them to be used. And basically you put them in areas where you have your high incidence of problems, and they don't need to have weapons or anything. They just need to be there. They need to show presence. If you, right now, you've got teachers stationed in the hall. One of the big problems is they have to be pulled for coverage of classes because we don't have enough substitutes. We don't have enough bodies to cover different things. And so when that area goes uncovered, then that's when you run into problems. So if you have, and if we get these 4 positions, that's all they would do. We aren't going to pull them to cover the cafeteria or some other kind of coverage. Those people would be there. They would be present in the hall. They'll be circulating around. And as long as they are there, your incidents of problems.
Plus they'll have radios to
Right.
cue the security people who are there who have stuff.
Exactly.
But, what
And I would say that they should be trained, and I'm assuming this will happen, trained in the de-escalation, on the passive restraint, and all of the stuff that they would need to have, all the tools that they would need to have I see that as a real major piece to the,
For someone that's walked around in a prison with 2,000 convicted felons every day, I didn't carry a gun, but we had other tools that were used to help identify and de-escalate problems before they got really bad. When you had to call those people in with the batons and the guns. So I'm hoping these positions are those that are there to help find the problem, get to the root of the problem before it becomes a problem that we have to throw kids out of school and send them to jail.
No, absolutely, you're absolutely right. All the trends, all the science, all the research. Yes, we don't want to be seen as a prison. I mean, it's a whole different culture. I do understand. But I don't feel comfortable with this building not having a real officer in it at all times. I don't like floaters.
There is.
what do you mean a real officer? I thought that's,
At all times, they don't have to leave and go to other
One
schools?
officer floats between here and the middle school, but we're not.
Okay, I misunderstood.
There's-
Okay, I misunderstood. I
As
thought we
far,
had,
as far as I understand, getting off topic here, as far as I understand, there's a sworn law enforcement officer at Bucktail. There's one here, one at the middle school, and one here, one at the middle school, Bucktail, and one floated that goes between the elementary schools and a assist here. Then you also have a resource officer assigned to this building that doesn't carry a firearm, but he's a trained resource officer.
okay, that's my mistake. I thought you had
Right.
one person here
Oh,
and the other person is just going like all over the place.
Now, we have a school police officer at the middle school, a school police officer at the high school, a school police officer at Bucktail Road. And then we have a school security officer, that's Officer Van Gorder.
Yeah.
He's also assigned here. He is able to carry a sidearm and a taser in issue citation. And we have Officer Fetzer, who is able to carry a taser. He floats around middle school.
Oh, he's the-
I'm sorry, the elementary schools
Okay,
as needed, and he handles all the attendance stuff in the district too. But mainly, the numbers down south, in our district, we have those three officers, Officer Nar, Officer Van Gorder, and Officer Bryan are down at middle school and high school. Officer Bryan, Officer Van Gorder are here almost every day, all day. Every now and again, if the middle school needs help, Officer Bryan will go to the middle school. That's on an ask.
okay, if you're comfortable with this, then these are full-time people, right?
Yeah,
So.
and
yeah,
all
they're
four of them,
full-time.
all four of them are armed with handguns and they have long guns available to them.
There's 5 total.
The 5 total. Officer Fetzer does not.
Fetzer doesn't carry a gun.
But there's 5 total.
So Mark, seriously, I'm depending on you to tell us. I mean, I know, but I'm just saying, let's say he wanted 6, but we're just trying to keep the budget down.
As
I just,
Butch mentioned, I mean, if money were no object, yeah, let's get one for every building. But if you look at the data, if you look at Swiss data and where our issues are.
I know, I'm sorry, but
Another officer in our building would not have stopped what happened most recently.
sure,
And again, I come from a prevention background, drug and alcohol prevention. What are we doing to prevent these things?
response
If-
time.
If we have these types of positions and people who are dedicated specifically for that purpose, that they're gonna go out and identify those high impact areas, which we know in our buildings, where those areas are at. We can concentrate those folks in that area where they can be for first responders when there's issues that are starting to surface. So they would have those skills, as Jeff was saying about their escalation strategies, conflict management type trainings that can help de-escalate a situation. So where we don't have to have the officers involved. Again, not to say that they shouldn't be, because they're also out, they're making relationships with these kids.
Yeah, that's
Talking to
that's
them
important.
and know that,
Yep.
yes.
Perfect.
So
Okay,
again, I won't take anything away from them on that perspective, but
okay,
But I think that that's what I've been learning through the last several months as we've been talking about discipline and behavior in many different venues. Is that at our first safety meeting, I felt like we spent 2 hours educating the board members in that safety committee meeting, what we already have in place, because there's a lack of understanding or awareness. And I think that also bleeds over into the community. So yeah, we're asking people for input, but people don't know what we have, so they don't know where, and
well,
budget perspective, I can pull us back on task here for budget and personnel budget with regards to that. In the last 4 years, under the personnel budget, we have added to the personnel, we have added an additional a school resource officer. We have added a social worker, a behavior specialist, a crisis counselor, 2 additional school counselors because we were understaffed there. And we've added 3 facilitators back into the budget as new positions. Now, we tried through adding these 9 to repurpose positions that we had that we didn't feel that we needed. But in a sense, I can say to you, that is $1 million a year in 9 positions, professional positions,
Mhm.
that we have been trying to put on, Jeff, what you're saying is the prevention side. And when you look at the data and you say 3 to 5% of our population are the kids who in crisis level that need that serious help. And that's where a lot of our resources are going, financial, physical, and, employee resources is going to manage this 3 to 5%. I shudder to think what would be happening if we did not have the resources now that we have in place. And so one of the things I want to talk to Butch about later today and Mark is my idea about pulling those lists together, and communication
We
is
need that
what
back.
is
Yes,
part of the
please.
problem, because everybody
Yeah.
wants to throw a solution, but if you need to rely on us. You need to rely on us to do our jobs, and you need to rely on us to tell you what we need. And it's not any one person's thing. We work as a team. We look at the data, we look at the resources. When we don't know answers, we go find out from people that have them.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to do, is come back to you with some of those things. In advance of that, because the budget timing is coming due here, what we've done is we have built in some place, if we ask you for resources and you say yes and you approve them, that they are budgeted for. If you tell us, no, you need to get this down, then we'll go back to the drawing board and see where we can cut. But from a personnel standpoint, those 2 CTC programs are new. They have not been formally approved by you as a board. We're still waiting on CTC. Curtin is doing what he needs to do, and we're hoping we can get them in.
Mhm.
If for some reason the programs don't float this year and they go another year, that it's still in the budget for the following year. And we are still working on scheduling, and Mark's fully aware of this. Megan is working closely with the principals on scheduling to see if there are any positions for retirees that we can attract. And every position that comes up or vacant for whatever reason, retirement, we look at position control before we
Just gonna
post.
say,
Thank you.
as that process starts in terms of our voluntary transfer process, staff, every position as it's vacant, for whatever reason, we evaluate to make sure that we need it. I know that sometimes it's difficult to post. Rob, I know that that can take some time to go through the process and make sure that, we're looking at the position and we fill it and all that kind of stuff, but we do review all that information to make sure that we're making the best recommendation from our you guys as well. As to whether or not we keep it up. So. We don't think that likely, we don't think if somebody retired, it's gonna replace it.
No, we appreciate what both you're saying. I think all of the board members know that you do that. I mean, that's why we never bring it up. I mean, because we know, but maybe this would help. For transparency and all that, because, obviously the board doesn't know well enough, which the public doesn't know well enough, all these support people the district has. I mean, once you start labeling them all and listing them, that's a very powerful list. So I'm coming back to this. As a person looking at the spreadsheet or report, I see additional instructional support staff. To me, that sounds like it's someone in there helping a teacher teach. I think the safety part, the component of it isn't, because if I just read that, that's what I would think. It's someone in the classroom helping a teacher teach.
Well, the instructional is
Slash
professional
support, yeah.
educators, the slash, and then the support staff could be anything from
It's
the
by
support
bargaining.
staff.
It's by bargaining. That's how instructional, and then it was the support group the building assistants would fall under the support group.
Going back to, how many building assistants were we talking? I got the 2 CTC
We include
instructors,
teachers and then 4 paraprofessionals.
4 paraprofessionals.
Can we
That's
write
what's in
that
that
in there
number.
just so everyone can just see it? That would be very helpful.
Well, I think it's important too, public knows that those positions that it's happening. But
Extremely
That's why it's
important.
on the slide for you. And it's not that we're not trying to take something else away when we can, but right this moment today, I cannot verify that we cannot backfill. Like, we thought we had 2 additional positions, and after the 18 meeting yesterday, they're like, well, no, we don't need it in science, we need it here. And so they're still working on that scheduling, so I don't feel comfortable at this time taking any staffing out.
I'm still stuck in the 4 professionals. Where will they be assigned, or have you ever thought
We
about?
haven't gotten to that point. We actually tried to look at dollars first and say, what could we comfortably put in the budget and ask for at this point in time? What would be the budget impact?
I
of
just didn't know
adding
if you were
4?
anticipating like 2 here, 1 at the middle school, 1 at Bucktail.
We haven't gotten that far yet, Butch.
Okay,
And that doesn't mean we couldn't, if we wanted more of those positions, that we couldn't try to repurpose something else we have. I've asked special ed to tell me who's graduating that has a paraprofessional and how we're gonna repurpose those folks. And we're
Okay.
looking for the efficiencies, but right now, budget impact wise, at this time of year, we're asking you to support.
well, I'm supportive of the paraprofessional for a couple different reasons. I think it's gonna be getting to the root of the problem versus
Reactionary.
reactionary to the police side of it. And I think it's gonna be easier to fill a paraprofessional position than you would a law enforcement position. And I know we heard at their meeting the other night, everyone's claiming we need more females. There's not that many female police officers retiring that you can grab up to get in this position. But I'm pretty sure you can find paraprofessional females to help with that,
Well,
not to be sexist, but.
I think the other thing I would say to you is, even though we may use grant dollars to fund these, and if the grant runs out, you run to a budget wall
Yeah.
somewhere, there's always seems to be a pattern of turnover in paraprofessionals. And so in the future, I feel more comfortable asking you for that, to support that, as opposed to professional staff members, which don't turn over nearly as often. So you would be not as at risk for a furlough situation where you could, if you needed to change things in the future years, you could do it through attrition as opposed to furlough.
And I think especially since they're gonna, if we train them properly to help with the behavioral or mental health side of it, to help identify issues and work through those issues, I think they'd be more beneficial.
To that end, that also will probably go to the personnel committee, because if this position is specialized and it's not just a building aid and it's specialized and we want special criteria, that position's not currently in the collective bargaining agreement. And so we would need to have a job description. We need to write what it is we're doing, and then we could go that direction. Now, we could just train up building aides, but I don't think it's going to be as effective. So those are the pieces we don't have hammered out yet.
And I think if you do that, as far as the personnel committee is concerned, when you write the job description, you also would have to make it to the pay, depending, be in coordination with what their training would be. Because you're just hiring
Skill
a
set.
building assistant, that's based on their skill set. So you would, and that would have to go into the support contract. Yeah, whatever hourly rate or you decide to pay them, but
So that's what that number represents. There's a lot more to be figured out about it. But we feel that if we don't ask you to build it into the budget now, we may lose options as we develop out the concept.
Okay, can I just beat a dead horse one more time? I hate that saying, but I've been reading as much as I can, Mark. I have been for the last 2 years, especially the last month. And it just seems like these positions are more like, they're just a turnover. We have them, we don't, we have them, we don't, we have them, we don't. And I could be wrong. But when you have a security officer, they're part of the community, and they go to lunch with the kids, they watch the games with the kids, relationships are built. And then the kids, not all, but some, they're like, wow, being an officer is really cool. and they actually go into that profession later in life because they had this incredible relationship throughout school. So again, I personally would like to see security officers because of that. The culture, the relationships, and also their skill set and long-term versus someone who comes in and turn over and turn over and turn over.
And I would say too, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, again, I go back to one word of object. Yeah, let's hire as many as we could, but I think in terms of what we can utilize the most right now, right now is someone who was theoretically on the front line with those kids in that moment when situations is starting to percolate, and they step in, they have the background and training to know how to deal with that situation before it rises to the level of even where administrator is needed or law enforcement is needed. And look, I love our officers, but they also have to be reprogrammed when they come into a school.
Sure.
Because it's not Rockview.
No, it's not.
And it's not walking the beat in Lock Haven. You know, there are differences when you're operating in a school that you have to take into consideration. It takes a very unique individual
Sure.
to be able to flip that switch coming from, you know, either state police or city police background or prison situation, and then translating that into a school system.
They're
So
limited to what they can do too.
Yeah, absolutely. And
They're
it's,
not
I mean,
assistant principals.
we've interviewed some folks in the past where I wouldn't have wanted them to be an officer in our district because I think we would have ended up having some personnel issues and potential lawsuits. And again, I think our guys do a great job. I think the training that we provide them is far exceeds what a lot of our even local officers get. What they're doing, especially in the area of de-escalation and relationship building and all that kind of stuff. And even dealing with special education students, they've got some specific training in that area as well from a law enforcement perspective. And I think some of the discussion, and I take responsibility for this in terms of the understanding of those positions and how they are to be utilized in the district. But honestly, that's more over the last couple of years. Especially.
Sure, I'm sure it
And how
has.
those positions are viewed yesterday's incident, and what we're learning from that, and how we can then again adjust those types of positions. So
Okay,
it's not that the officers aren't needed, and I would certainly appreciate the additional staff in any way, shape, or form. But the bottom line is the bottom line. We have so many dollars to go around.
okay. Can I
Unless you're
say-
asking us to add more.
Well,
To the-
me
that's not
personally,
our recommendation
I
right
would-
now.
I would support that. Okay, let's flip the coin on this then. Okay, so the board approves these additional folks. Does that mean then the officers have more time theoretically to spend with the students, like build the culture, build the relationships, and not be seen as, you know, the heavy hand?
I don't
I-
think
I see those four positions functioning kind of the same way. They will build relationships with those kids because they're going to see them in the halls. They're going to be with
Sure.
them the whole school day. They're going to get to know those kids that are going to be maybe problematic kids and start to build some kind of a rapport with them so that will, you know, if they do run into a problem, they're going to be able to say, well, yeah, this so-and-so is a good person. They're going to trust them. And I mean, I see them doing the same kinds of things,
Okay.
really.
And I don't know that it would be more time. I think, again, it's just because they're out in the buildings all the time, you know, interacting with the students.
Responding to
Covering more
crisis,
area.
responding to safety, bus accident, like
Just standing
it's
out
not
in the-
just
in front of the
discipline and
cafeteria during
hammer
lunchtime,
there.
you
And
know,
it
in the
could be an
mornings.
additional step that if this group of paraprofessionals are working with kids and they realize something is traumatic in this kid's life, they might be able to have them talk to one of the officers next as a next step, or maybe direct them to a guidance counselor.
It usually
or
goes to the
something.
crisis counselor, the
Something,
social
yeah.
worker, and we have
Just
an
depending on
entire
what it is. yeah.
process
Oh,
for,
sure you do.
we
I know
have an
you do.
entire
I know you do.
process for threat assessment.
Okay,
And then here's something I just want to mention to you all too. You approved the contract with Beth Ann McCain, Dr. McCain, to come in and do a behavioral health assessment
Yep.
district-wide. She's worked with Mark to get that scheduled. She does surveys, she gathers information, she site visits. Out of that assessment will come some recommendations. if that recommendation says you need a police officer, if it says you need extra supports, if it says you need social, there's money here.
It could be,
As you
Sure, I understand.
approve this budget, you're not approving those specific positions, but we're justifying to you that we added money to the budget so that we can respond. And right now, we use that dollar figure because we believe right now in the moment that that's could be the most bang for our buck.
that's well
And it
put,
could
well
evolve
put,
and change. Does that help?
well put, yeah.
Getting off topic even farther, what I intend to talk about with Jackie and Mark after this meeting, we're gonna have a discussion. I think we need to hire some additional security officers part-time because we have one off now injured.
That's,
I don't know how long he's gonna be off for.
He's
but-
back.
Oh, he's back. Wow. I wouldn't expect
I
that.
love that idea. That's farming too.
It's just you have a
Help-
couple that we can have part-time if someone takes off
We've been
sick.
talking about
fill
that.
it,
Mark
yeah.
and I have been talking about that, of having some officers trained, be willing to be hired as substitutes as needed. And so we've been talking about it, but we haven't approached the negotiations personnel committee folks about it yet.
And I think I'd see that cost as minimal if you just
I
like
would say
hiring
it's
a
minimal.
substitute teacher. It's pretty much the same concept. And I know the sheriff's office has them. They have part-time people.
And one final thought, Elizabeth, in terms of the officers. We've been working diligently over the last few years to try to foster better relationships with all the law enforcement,
Yes.
state police.
Mhm.
For example, today, the lockdown drill at the high school. We had 6 officers, 4 state police and 2 county sheriff's officers that do the lockdown drill, walk the building, talk to staff, getting them to encourage them to come into our campuses, our buildings, all over the district. After they're done here, they want to go home.
Oh, is that why I saw the cars? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So
Didn't mean to interrupt.
they are coming into our buildings.
Mhm.
You know, so it's not just our officers that are covering our campus. The jurisdictions wherever our buildings are at, they're also involved, and the city police have been great down at Rock, when they have their lockdowns, they're there, probation coming in. And we always tell them, we met with, Sergeant Everts, from the state police, who's down in officers, state police, encourage them each and every day to come into our buildings every chance they get. We're working through some additional trainings that we might be able to do this summer with the state police. Some of our lockdown drills that we're going to expand on what we're doing here locally. We're working through the tabletops that we're doing throughout the communities to work through what an active shooter drill or an active shooter approach would look like all through the unification process. So even more so than just adding an officer, we're fostering those relationships within our community groups, with law enforcement agencies and other first responders,
Mhm.
to try to encourage them to come into our schools. and
Great messaging, great
tap into those
messaging,
resources.
great messaging.
And with the officers, when we add officers, we also add, probably no, a car to the fleet. We add weapons, and those cars are not inexpensive. And so in many cases, an officer is more expensive than a teacher, a full-time
No,
professional.
I understand that.
And so,
I get it.
if we
Equipment.
felt that that's what we needed and we were short there, we would be, would have already asked you for that. And I know that there has been discussions that started at safety committee and then went to personnel. But it's my understanding that no recommendations have come out of the personnel committee to add that staffing based on the current conversations. So this is why, this is what the numbers represent. Again, our thinking and how we came up with them, but again, you're not really approving any specific positions.
So having noted the increase in the state subsidy and these notable expenses, they were added into the budget. I also did account for the potential of the interest income as well that we talked about last meeting for the investments. So then, having said that, the next slide then is your no tax increase. This is accounting for all the ins and outs of those expenditures and those revenues. So then it would look like with no tax increase, you would be shortfall of $1.2 million.
With the additional money that we received from the state, that's all included in this.
Yes, now then, remember, I also took out the 2 million for the, yes, and the 165, the 520, the 250 for that. I took out, you know what, this is a conservative picture, but it's the picture we wanna show. So, you know, again, accounting for all of those plus and minuses. So then the next slide will show you what a 50% tax increase would look like. So again, that's taking it down to a $737,000 shortfall. That would be about $36. The median assessed value would be about $36 for the
The increase in
taxpayer.
the taxes
The
is
increase, yes.
$36.
Yes.
Does that say it on that sheet?
It does not. I
Would you,
get asked that, I can add.
would
it.
you please? That would be so
Absolutely.
helpful. So the consumer or citizen, thank you.
Absolutely.
The next one shows the same.
Then the next slide will show the 75% tax increase. The increase to the taxpayer will be about $55. There you'll see a $389,000 shortfall. Then at your 100% tax increase, which is about $73 increase to the taxpayer, you show a shortage of $40,000.
That's $73 a year, correct?
It is.
And if we
Yes,
divide
for-
it by 365 days, what does that come out to? Who has a calculator?
What do you want to figure out?
70, was it $75?
$73.
$73 divided by 365
And
days,
that's based on what,
20
a $100,000 home or
20 cents.
what's it? Is
What
that
can you
based on
buy
like
for
a
20 cents every
$100,000
day?
home?
I don't think it's that high. I don't think
Or-
the median assessed, it's based on the median
what-
assessed value. I think
Okay.
it's 55.
Is that what it
Not
I
is?
thought it was 100.
I'll ask Jeff, but that, we did.
The
take
$100,
median.
100,000 assessment.
I don't think it's that high, but I'll double check.
Yeah,
I
that's
have it
real-
in my notes.
that's
So
real
I think
important.
the
Thank
stat
you.
we gave you was on the average assessed home.
Average assessed home, yes.
Yeah, it wasn't, but maybe that's what you're looking for is if it's $100,000 home, here's what this would equate to. And then
Mhm.
we
Well, that's
go
what
up and
people-
down from
That's
there.
what-
That's standard.
Yeah.
That
People
would be higher than
understand
that.
that.
That would be higher than that.
Let me, I'll do my homework and get. right
Thank
back
you.
with
Yeah, and then
What
if
I was adding or subtracting is how much actually a 50% increase brought in, 75 was brought in, and then 100 brought in. So, you know, you're looking at what, about 50,000 for 500,000 for a 50% increase?
50% is
No.
about 650,000.
Yeah, because of the index this year. It wouldn't-
The index. was
Wasn't the
higher.
max increase was like 1.3 or
Three,
4 or something like that?
Adjusted was, well, it was 5.1 is the Act One index.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
went to index.
we get adjusted. It's 5.1 for us because it was adjusted.
Right.
For our poverty rate.
Right.
And so,
Which would equate to about 1.3 or 4, if I
Yes.
remember right.
Yes, 1.3.
If
And
we went to
again-
400% of
Yes.
it to the index, yeah.
Yes.
so either, any of those scenarios, we still have to go back and trim something to get you a balanced budget. But we need to know how far back do we have to trim to get you a balanced budget.
Well, I can't imagine, besides athletics, which I'm not even gonna, we're not gonna, besides athletics, I'll be honest with you, already, remember when Susan made that list and she compared us, the tax mill compared to all, we were like the bottom third, the number third on the bottom of the list of how the percentage, how many mills we pay per $100,000. So first of all, we're one of the lowest school district taxes in like north central region of Pennsylvania. So,
Raised taxes in 3 years. And the
Which
year
isn't-
before that, it was a very small increase.
I already know where I am.
Oh, and I'll also add too,
I
I have
don't need to
built
be
in,
convinced.
I've built in a 10% healthcare. It
We're not
could
even sure
go,
where that's at.
11.
it could go
We have a
higher.
meeting next
Yeah,
week.
12,
We
yeah.
meet with her next week, so.
See, I've
um,
brought this up a couple times in the past. Personally, I'm more in favor of going up a smaller amount
Every year.
yearly than a large amount every couple years.
Mhm.
So I said it last month and I heard some criticism that I think if we set our goal at a 50% increase, which would would still set us down to about 700, well, $750,000 short.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we can pair that, but I think it's good because that's including that $2 million you're looking at.
It is.
So if we don't get those grants, we're fine.
And I would propose if we didn't to maybe direct that extra budgeted dollars towards capital, like the capital projects.
Right.
You know,
Because
absolutely.
if we're
but-
gonna have to pay for it one way or the other, either through the grant funding or pay it ourselves through capital project.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that $2 million is gonna have to be spent.
Yeah.
Some will, might not want to spend it, but we're gonna have to spend it. in the Capital project.
The other thing too, excuse me, that we did talk about last time was, look at the money we're making off of investments, right?
that
So
would be
can you
my other-
explain which part of the investments that you counted on and what you didn't?
So I'll jump there, because that's where
Oh,
the
sorry.
next.
Oh,
that's
you've
okay.
already built it into this?
So only some of it. So-
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I jumped.
I had a discussion with somebody else on the board that investment money looks nicer, but I don't think we can plan our budget on it because you never know how long it's gonna be that stable amount. I think it could fluctuate.
Can
So-
let Joni explain
But
why
I'm
she
sorry,
counted on what she
yeah, just
counted.
wanna-
and I jumped too.
We want to
Sorry.
finish this presentation here to move on to the next one then, right? Or,
There isn't a presentation for the next, I was just going to
Oh,
give you an
good.
investment
Okay.
update. We are locked in for that CD for 1 year at 5.18%.
That's crazy.
So that's $7 million that was already invested. So that's sitting there today. So we are locked in with that and the 200,000 from food service. So both of those dollars are sitting there. That's guaranteed money. We're going to get that return, which is about $350,000. And we also guaranteed the extra 4% with the money market, again, for a year. I've never seen that drop in any of my time here. You have some leverage when you're an $84 million business and you want to go shop around banks. You have some leverage of what they're going to do for you. So that's where that 4% came from. And I just moved $1.8 million into that account today. So I do think there's potential there, but you're right, we can't count on it forever
We can count on the CD return
for the year.
for the
for
year.
the year.
So
But an investment is different.
And I also did not put,
how much is that additional? I mean, we didn't just let the money sit there in the past. It was collecting some sort of return, wasn't
bank
it?
it was,
Interest.
you were collecting 1% on that.
Yeah. Mhm, bank
We,
interest.
and also true, I can't say this for sure, but 5 years ago, you probably didn't have $18 million sitting there. You know, so.
Everything was in
This is
flux.
the ESSER, you know, this is
Right.
compounded year after year. Where I think we might have been a little more strategic was when we did do the bond. And we would have had a couple of years to maximize those amounts. You know, there we could have used a little bit of strategy investing that money short term.
So that 300 and some thousand you talked about, we might have received, what, 100,000 in past years, now it's 300,000.
It wasn't, yes.
Okay,
And here's what I'll say too. So if you, let's just say you want to take the 2 million out and you want to use general fund balance for the 2 million to fund the grant instead of use that for the grant money, then you take away your investment opportunity with that $2 million. I just want to make sure everyone understands. that
You're
You take
making money
away
off your
using
money.
general
Right,
fund,
we're making
you're
money.
taking away your investment opportunities. And I'm not saying always have $25 million in the account. That's, you know, we have to be reasonable at some point, but you don't want to take away something that's going to give you more bang for your buck to pay off, you know,
Right.
to use general fund balance money. So that's what I'll.
Okay.
So that's why we're recommending building it into the budget.
I think it's also difficult to say that a tax increase is needed for any single thing in the budget. You can't say it's for teachers, you can't say it's for facilities, it's not for it's not for school safety. It's not for any one thing, and if I could impress that upon you, you know, nobody likes getting a tax increase.
Well,
But
the cost of everything we've
I'm just gonna
done
say,
in the last
inflation,
2 years have gone up.
even just inflation in general.
Everyone's expecting the
To come back.
taxes to go up this year. I mean, everyone's expecting it that my small little world.
And I've heard too, that the county is also considering raising their portion of tax. So I don't think we're alone in
I mean, all the municipalities did.
making these kind of decisions.
Okay. Do you
And I-
have a recommendation for us as of now,
Well-
what you would recommend?
we do.
Yes.
If you're comfortable with 75, we take it, but if the majority of the board is comfortable with 50, we will make it work. But we think 0 is is not good.
It's impossible.
Yeah,
I would do 75 if we can get more money into the facilities account. 600,000 is not, I'm not.
We accounted for more than that. The 600,000 is there, but we also accounted for the extra for the grants. So if you took that off, you would need to raise taxes, but, but you still can't look at it as any one thing.
The
But
only thing
there
I'm
is
sitting
more
here
money in
thinking
this
about
budget for
last,
that already.
I've heard some comments from Mr. Dietrich that we have $17 million sitting there. We're not gonna raise taxes as long as we have $17 million to spend. So we have to convince him this is necessary. I know him. I know,
Well-
it's apparent that the three of us understand it. I'm not sure how the majority of the board would be.
I think Dr. Martin and Joni said it really well. And I think for the average person, and I'm average, seeing it on a whiteboard or written out, that if you keep this much money in an investment for 3 years, approximately, this is how much you're gonna get. But if you whittle that down to $5 million, this is how much money you're gonna get in 3 years. Now, in the short term, yes, bring that savings down. In the short term, that makes logic, but in the long term, it's not logical to me. So now if I understand, I think I understand what David's trying to say. I don't know. To be honest with you, I would like for him to have an opportunity to try to explain it so I could visualize what he's thinking. But the school district never did a good job at making money.
Until now.
I mean, yeah, because look, there's been
But you
two,
have to have money to
Well,
make
yeah.
money. right?
Exactly.
The only thing
that's-
I'd say about that, we're not in the business to make money. We're in the business to educate kids, but unfortunately that costs a lot of money. So we have to have that money to pay for.
But would we
It's
be
coming from-
responsible, but
it's-
would we be responsible knowing we could make money and we don't?
No, that's part of our job. to-
There, well, there you go.
To be fiscally responsible. Actually, that's Tony's job. So, but that's where we have to convince 9 members of the board, this is the way to go. And I'm trying to sit here and think, do we have those 9 votes now? I'm not sure.
I
You
would,
have to do your part to talk to David. 'cause he's
well,
not
I
talking
want to,
me.
I want to hear their points of view, but as long as they're giving us logic, I'll listen, but unless it's just going to be like, I'm not doing taxes, 'cause I don't want taxes. Well, I'm not going to listen to you.
So the recommendation is 75%.
I feel, when we talk today, because I said they may ask us what we want, because we're asking them for direction, they may turn it back on us, and we agreed that 75 would be ideal for us. Obviously the most, but we understand where you're at, so we believe we can make it work with 75. And if you absolutely wouldn't stomach 75, we could make 50 work. You go below that, we're struggling.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if that's feasible below that. And again, compounding year after year, those
Yeah.
out years, it's hard to visualize on the slide, but it's dramatic impact on the out
I'm a
years.
firm believer to what you said, Butch, and I've said that in my interview, and I've continued to
Yep.
say it to this board every single year. Slow and steady, and it helps you in those out years. You don't
think-
miss the opportunities
I
to
think
make
the
the money.
75% also is making up for the years that we probably should have done the
Right.
small increases.
It all washes
And then
out in the
next
same
year
pot.
Going forward, you probably don't have to do the 75% going forward.
I never, for the record, I never voted no tax increase, okay? I truly
How many times
believe,
did you vote tax increase?
well, I never got a chance to.
Okay, so what you just said was it sounded really good, like, it's almost like you should be running for
Well-
political office, because you talk like a politician.
That's me, I'm the
I've
political
never voted
machine.
for a tax
And you got to
increase,
remember
never
that
voted for.
those years that we were doing zero tax increase, it was COVID.
That's the-
People weren't working. There was all kinds of insanity going on in those times, and to do a tax increase then would have been
Oh, insane.
ridiculous.
And it was hard to justify.
Right.
I know, but I still know facilities needs more money. I'm sorry, they do. We need storage for CTC, I'm sorry, so.
Well,
I'm-
everything needs
I'm
more money.
hoping, and again, this is wishful thinking and rubbing my crystal ball, that someone down at Harrisburg realizes, yes, they did lose the lawsuit. They have to start funding fairly the school districts. So even though we got to increase this year, it jumps more next year, so we can dwindle that $9 million down for the 24-25 budget, and get that down in the next year. It's not that we're using a deceptive plan for our budget. It's just the best we have is this idea right here going on, everything being current.
And I do feel that I'm hopeful Governor Shapiro is going to start working back on the school infrastructure bill.
Oh, God.
And I'm hearing a lot of positive rumblings there that can help in the out years. We will with anything we're doing that's, able to go through that process. We will put it in case it does come back. We don't want to go, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda. We will be ready for that. So we don't give up that option.
That was probably one of the worst things they've done, given with the plan con.
Well, I hate to say what party did that, but I'm not saying names.
Well, the other thing, you can see what we have been planning for is working. We plan to get a 10-year plan in place. When we have the 10-year plan in place, we update it every 6 months as new things come up. I'm keeping a list. I've got the storage thing on there, although I know that was one person's recommendation. We haven't looked at other solutions yet. So the final solution is not just to build and add storage. Is to find and solve the solution without adding facility, but also what we did today at facility meeting was, look, here are the grants and the ways that we have been coming up with to try to fund these things, and you're supporting it. So this is how we work together to get it done.
So what I would like you to do, that if you can do it, Jody, just for the 13th, have an idea what it would cost in the average $100,000 house, what a 75% would be, and we'll really push that one. If we get a little bit of resistance, drop back down to the 50. So you kind of have to prepare them both for a 50% increase in 75, but let's make the presentation go with the 75.
So we will give you a balanced budget with a 75% increase with it by April
13.
13th.
Just something I see, and I'm not on the committee, but when you say the 50 and the 75%, a lot of people from the outside don't understand what that means. So we're raising to 75% of the index. They don't even know what the index is. So I think we need to make it clear and when we do the public presentation of what that actually means. Nobody knows what Act 1 is. A few people do.
That's where we're gonna
All
put
those
the
pieces,
dollar.
I think that we're raising 5%, raising 2%. Those things, people.
Or they think it's 50% or 75% of the total bill.
Yeah, they're paying
Yeah.
$2,000
That's what
taxes, they're
people
gonna
think.
raise another
Yeah.
fund.
So we need to put a percentage, to what your suggestion is, put a percentage to it.
Somehow that the public understands what that means, because this,
Make it realistic.
That's
So
why I
you
think
don't
let's
think they
put it-
understand that would add $36?
That's, I think, a dollar figure. We need a
dollar
dollar
Right.
figure.
figures
Dollar
help, but
figures.
but I've
That's,
heard people
that's
out-
what's gonna cost them, and that's what's gonna hit their wallet. So
And
it's,
70
I didn't think it was
75% of the index.
Will cost you
Cost you-
$57 or $77.
But you
Right.
have
On a
to say the
$100,000 house.
Yes, you
If you
can't
throw the
say.
mills in you there, you get to really be on everybody.
Don't use the M word, please.
I know a lot of places, they'll say the average house is 110,000 and this is what your taxes are. And if we raise the millage, then this is what your taxes will be. So then, okay, well, my house is actually, my house isn't 125. But
Okay,
if my house would be 125, then I can visualize what my taxes might be.
And then break that down from an annual to you said was per day.
Yes.
And
Okay.
monthly or
then
whatever.
I think
I
that-
was, you were correct. It's 99,100. Times what 36, 55, and 73 are based on.
thought it was.
So it's
100.
99,100. That is the median. I apologize. I thought it was lower than that, but I think I was looking at Center County and Potter County, and then we also have Clinton County. So the median's 99,100.
I think it's also helpful when the board says things such as, things in general are costing more, and we don't go to any single cost center.
Right.
But I do think, Elizabeth, I feel like you said this last year. We have a 10-year plan with $64 million worth of facility projects identified. And even though we're looking for other ways and we're budgeting annually to address it, those needs are glaring. And we can no longer, and multiple people have said, we can no longer neglect the facility projects. And those are also, your buildings are your investments.
Liberty Curtain's a prime example. We neglected, I mean, I came on
Vicky.
board in 2008.
Right.
It's been neglected since pretty much 2008.
Nikki, same thing. But, anyway, I think it's helpful when board members share their perspectives about the big picture and not just any single cost center, because what you don't want is you don't want people then attacking, well, cut this and cut that. I can assure you that we are working in a fiscally responsible manner to get what we need in the budget. There are a few things budgeted in contingency that we said, look, if we need these things, they're gonna go here. We've also been strategic, just to give you an idea, about moving things that maybe would have been in the general fund into a 5,000 account, which also helps lower the charter bucket. And it's legal, it's, fine. But it also, we're trying to address those
It's
pieces.
just better awareness on our part, what counts for charter school funding
Sure.
and what doesn't, so, yeah.
Sure. So I just want to make sure I'm aware for the April 13th, then you want to see the 75% proposed.
75%
Balanced.
of the index,
And
what the,
50.
So you wanna bring
equates
us
to
a-
dollar amount for an average $100,000 house.
Okay, but you want to see it balanced at
Yes.
75%.
Yeah.
Should we also bring the 0, the 50 and the 75 balance?
I would go 75 and 50. If it goes to 0, then we're gonna have to do a lot.
No,
of
we're not
talk.
doing 0. It's not happening.
Don't say we're not.
Well,
We hope
My-
not to,
Need five
but we're- if
votes.
it goes to 0,
It's not
we're gonna
happening.
have to go back and regroup and come at this a different way.
well, my concern is that Mr. Dietrich has said in the past that he
Well,
wants a 0%, he wants no tax increase. And he
That's
thinks that we
fine.
have a 17,
That's fine.
but he thinks we have a $17 million savings account that we can just dip into to make up the difference.
Well, one thing
And
I
that's
don't
not the
like,
case.
well, one thing I don't want to do is, if David, after he hears a presentation, he still has an opinion. Of course, I want to hear any board member's opinion. I want to hear their logic, but I don't want to assume about a board member, talk about a board member when they're not here, okay?
I'm just going by what his
I-
comments have been in the past.
I
that's
know,
all.
but
At
that's-
at the public meeting.
Yeah.
At a public meeting,
Right.
I mean,
I just-
what
He can
else am I
still-
supposed
but
to assume?
Every board member has the right to vote the way they want to vote.
Right,
Right,
and that's not,
But
you
the
know,
committee has to give us the direction.
So the direction I'm asking, to come up with a 75% balanced budget,
And the numbers that go with that for the real
Right.
dollars per
so we
average
can make a
home.
presentation,
Do
so
you also want to see the 50% slide?
I'd have that there just in case,
Okay, so that will show a deficit then.
yes.
Okay.
mhm.
and
Bring-
Butch, you might also want to put the 0 in there because that's going to show, if we do nothing,
No, you're right.
you're
Jeff.
going to show
You're right.
what that red number is going to be, and it's going to be a heck of a lot higher than
I mean,
the
it's dramatic.
75 or 50.
Well, we
I'll be
will then
taking-
verbalize that our recommendation is 75 because this is where we know we can be balanced. If you
Right.
tell us to go back to the drawing board and bring it down to 50, we will do what you
Mm.
direct us to do.
We got more important things to take care of.
Yeah, if
I
we
get
get
it.
down to 0, I mean, you're looking at a, what,
If we can
$1.2
get it at
million
0, we have
deficit
it
that
there.
Can I see that bathroom?
we can't cut.
And I would just have that in my back pocket though, if
The
needed.
kids are gone.
That's just my opinion, but
Thank you so much, Jolene, everybody. It was very nice.
That's it, Les. That's pretty much on that presentation there. What else do we have?
This just showed you expenditures and revenue. Joni just listed the things that went into, and it kind of just a summary for you of what was in those numbers.
And nobody's gonna
Batteries
understand it, so
dead.
that's okay.
Get that target set up
But we
for all.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Acronyms,
That's okay.
acronyms.
I'd make it as understandable to the
No,
layperson
absolutely.
as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, acronyms are, yeah.
And no one has anything else?
Oh, of course I do, but I won't.
Well, I have one thing I'm gonna throw out there, just, it's kind of the right place to do it for now, but, after our meeting on Wednesday, I was talking to someone that works for probation, and Ed, who works in probation, he's one of the
Oh,
supervisors,
Ed.
watched the presentation, and he heard me talk about the monitors for that Halo, I didn't mention the Halo system, but the vaping and stuff. And he told this person that he believes that he can find funding to help pay for those. So I gave him, I talked to Scott Van Gorder yesterday. I wanted Ed to call Scott, but I said, Scott, you call Ed. I got Ed's phone number. Scott was calling Ed yesterday. I don't know how much funding they can do, but if they can get $1, it's $1 more than we have.
Just keep funnel all that information to Mark or I. we have Teresa taking all of those pieces. So you got people that are talking to you or sending you stuff, just get it to us so we have one central repository.
Oh,
Doesn't
yeah.
make sense
Mhm.
for every group to have different repositories.
Yeah, I
Well,
just,
he-
Information.
I didn't know, he
We'll
wanted to
put it
know
all
what we were
together.
buying. I wasn't sure the name and stuff, so I just told him to talk to Scott and go from there.
That's great. That's great. That's great. And I actually had someone talk to me. I went to a pub, which I hadn't been to in years.
We heard Rick drug you out.
Yes, he did. I had my one
Were
cider,
you dancing on the table?
almost.
Where did you take you to?
The broken
We already
house.
adjourned.
Yes.
Oh, wait, we're off recording.